Okay, so I see people coming in now. It's so great. We're really excited here at home office about who we have speaking today. And so it'll be great to have everybody in on this. There's going to be some new things that maybe you haven't actually thought of before or considered before. And so I think this is going to be really a great time together. So welcome everyone to After Lunch Special. This is your chance to kick back and settle in with great people doing great things from the Science of Mind magazine. I'm your host, Reverend Karin Wilson, and I'm delighted to be sharing with you today some behind the scenes insights about Centers for Spiritual Living, which has been providing Science of Mind magazine, plus tremendous spiritual support for people around the globe for nearly 100 years. These times we're living in have brought new challenges, as I know you all know, and of course, new opportunities. And Centers for Spiritual Living has been mindfully attuned to the call for what's next, whether that's today or, frankly, next week. So we thought it would be great to introduce you to Reverend Sonia Byrne from the Home Office of Center for Spiritual Living right in Golden, Colorado. Reverend Sonia has worked across the globe. She's been in Canada, in the US, the UK, Africa, and she has more than 20 years of leadership experience in wide-ranging fields from financial to academic, manufacturing, retail sectors, you name it, she's probably done it. And even with all that experience, I very much doubt she ever saw her first year as executive director would be one of such monumental change. So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So
I love that description. It's so apt.
So I really want you, to go back because these moments are moments that we will all remember. And I want to hear your moment of what it was like that first day when you realized something had changed in a big way with the pandemic.
Yeah, actually, I was on my way home from the office and I chose to be part of Governor Newsom in California, religious spiritual communities gathering around what it meant to be in pandemic. And so he was one of the first out of the gate, and we have many communities in California. So I tuned in, I'm driving home, I've got earbuds on, I'm heading to the grocery store. And the whole experience took me from my drive in through the grocery store, out of the grocery store, and up to my apartment. And so when I got into my apartment and the press conference ended, I literally pulled the earbuds out of my ear and called the executive team, my other three colleagues, and said, "This is what we're going to have to do." And right along that process of that drive home and whatnot, I was with my game plan of, we're going to need technology this weekend. And it was towards the end of the week. This weekend, we're going to need to go into live streaming. Our communities need tech support. They need help. We need to rally the troops, so to speak, and make a pretty quick pivot. That's a popular word right now. Pretty quick pivotal change to support the communities. And it all happened like that in an instant. The next day was the Colorado governor's press conference, very much the same.
Wow. And I remember, at that time, and in fact, I was actually one of the people who had signed up for your online teacher training course that was it was actually underway when that announcement happened and everything shifted. And I had been trying to, sign in for that for ages and finally got around to it. And who knew, right, that it was going to be such an incredibly important tool for everybody to have in their toolkit. And that was just sort of one example of many, many things that CSL has put through. Can you give me a couple of other things that happened, some examples of what you did?
Sure. So we had a program called Advance and Thrive already underway as well. It started in January, and it was to give social media marketing technology skills to our communities. And so we saw the numbers go way up in registration for things like podcast, Facebook, Instagram. That's recently happened. So we've seen those numbers really shift. What has occurred as well is that moving into a spiritual community and church and service beyond walls. It means that many of our communities have now people attending services, meditations, and workshops and training and development programs that are way outside CSL and way outside the geographies. So we've had to come up with ways that we can support that kind of growth as well through our own marketing.
So that in so many ways, that's sort of the business side of things. But the other thing that I think is so remarkable and unique about CSL is that because it is an organization supporting spiritual organizations, it by its very nature is applying principle to business. So how do you respond to those who say religion has no business in the boardroom?
So maybe not indoctrinated religion or a particular religion, but the overall concept of spirituality, which we express through our oneness training, the overall concept of spirituality very much belongs in the boardroom and very much belongs in organizations. And there's been a greater call for organizations in communities where our CSL ministries exist, that there are now employees at home and need help and want that soul support. So what we've been able to do inside the organization for our own ministers and practitioners and people who are in service, there's a bit of like, who takes care of the people who take care of the people. So we have been very intentional and purposeful in offering programming that's just for them, that's internal and with us. But what I am hearing is more and more of secular or corporate. There's other not-for-profits or other employers in any given community who now want some of the services that we provide, some of the trainings, the mindfulness, the meditation, to help their employee groups. And we're hearing more and more about that. You know, I'm brought to a Rumi quote, which I thought belonged in every boardroom. And I bought a piece of art in the Middle East that represented this quote. And it's the quote that begins with, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there." And I could see that quote in every boardroom, in every office, in every organization and not-for-profit around the world, because it reminds us that there's a middle way, a way to get to our experience of being in business together. And I think that business and corporate has never more been open to what we have to offer than now.
Can you just repeat that quote again, just a little bit more slowly?
Sure.
Because I think it really is beautiful.
Yeah. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there.
There's something about that field, right? That speaks to that visioning possibility in the midst of what we can't control, right?
Yeah, I've always thought of, you know, we can be so locked in and so polarized in our viewpoints. And we see that right now in the world, all over the planet. When we recognize that there is more than the right and the wrong, and we can only come to a conclusion and come to a completion together, that I always envision that when someone is done with the righting and the wronging of things, and they're willing to be in the remedy and the solution and the conversation, they're out in that field, whether it's a green field you're thinking of or an energy field. It's always sat with me that perhaps as people exit that wrong and right polarity, they go out there and wait for the other people to come and be done with their own righting and wronging. And there we can have harmony and we can create solution.
So that sort of speaks to that question of the difference that it could make when we begin operating business from spiritual principles without the indoctrination side, but more just philosophical or values-based understanding of what the objective is.
Yeah, you know, I think that, and I say this to our internal groups when I speak about this topic, is that that corporate and other not-for-profits organizations are ready, and I'm seeing this more in really you know, strict, rigid kind of traditional corporate environments, even right now, that corporate is using a set of words which I think are the safest way that they can speak to us. And so we need to have our ears open to hear those. So they're not saying religion, they're not saying spirituality, perhaps. They may not be saying spiritual practice, but they're saying conscious leadership, consciousness, mindfulness, mindfulness practice, mindful leadership. So I believe that group, that sector is using the words that they can use, that they feel safe to use. And it's a call to us to come and provide that, but we have to be willing to hear that and not wait for the words that we're waiting.
Hmm. So if I was an individual who wanted to sort of bring some of those qualities into my business, into my place of business, my corporation, are those the kind of words that you think could resonate in that conversation so that the doors open up a little bit wider?
Absolutely. And there is so much in terms of research around having mindfulness and spiritual practice or mindful practice in the workplace, and making the space for employees to have that. That it improves their work-life balance, it improves their productivity, their efficiency, their processes, project planning. So we're in this time in the world where what it means to be working at your desk looks entirely different than it did 6 months ago. So there's more space and more openness for these kinds of topics as well, and a deeper need. There's been many, many requests over the past 6 months for people inside our organization to speak to organizations and associations and businesses around mindfulness practices, and how to really navigate the chaos that employees and people managers are feeling right now in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know when we spoke earlier, one of the things was that people feel quite comfortable having a spiritual practice enter into, say, places where there are obvious challenges. So applying meditation practice if you have issues with mental health, or if you have issues with addictions, or perhaps you're in a prison. There's lots of communities, all different kinds of faith traditions that have worked with prisoners and helped them on that journey. But the corporate world has still kind of said, but not here.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating, right? And especially within what Science of Mind does, here we operate from that baseline of everything is whole. How do we elevate it to that next level, right? So it's that up-leveling idea as opposed to fixing, which is often seen the traditional way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, many organizations outsource this piece of work with their employees traditionally through their benefits program. And so benefit programming in the last 20 years has seen more, flex time, healthcare benefits, healthcare spending accounts, where employees get a portion where they can spend it on all kinds of things that are much more alternative and perhaps even more Eastern philosophy than would have been present in a traditional benefits program that would be offered to an employee base like 25, 30 years ago. We're already seeing that. And we're seeing it now move over or spread over outside of the benefits provider and into the boardroom and into the meeting. So we may get some of our people requested to come in, for instance, and do visioning or visualization or reflection or a meditation to open a political meeting in their environment, in their local community, to kick off a retreat or a sales team meeting, or for an association like a healthcare association, for instance. But it's spreading wider and wider as we see that the effect is positive. And I think that some of those, this pandemic, a gift in it, some of those walls and rigid thinking around what this means is really being blown away by the impact, and the effect is so prevalently good for an employee base that I think some of those expectations and cautions that were there even 6 months ago are probably not there right now.
So truly the pandemic is becoming an opportunity for those who choose to look at it in that way. And it sounds like you certainly did right from the get-go.
Absolutely.
So is there anything else that you'd like to share with people?
Well, I think that there is a lot of gifts at this time. There is definite beauty in this experience, in the simplicity, for whether you're an employee or a retired person, or whether you're a parent. There's all kinds of gifts right now. And so anchoring into a spiritual practice and taking on that opportunity to share it with your family, share it with your friends, or share it with your colleagues, there's never been a better time for the openness and the willingness to be in that, because right now people are looking for what works. And if it works, I'm in.
Wonderful. Well, we're super grateful to have you with us. And as a fellow Canadian, I didn't even mention that you're actually Canadian. I am so, I don't know, it's so fun to just talk to another Canadian. I always love that. So thank you again, Reverend Sonia, for being here. Thank you for your work with the executive team and all the other work that you do. It's a wonderful, wonderful little place, and with big, 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 massive reach. So thank you
Thank you for the
again.
blessing of this special. Thank you.